I've been serving #employment call lately, so I haven't had the time for self-indulgent projects aimed at strangers, but that ends today! If you're in the business of playing horse-centric video games, or consuming horse-centric media of any kind, you're probably used to wading through a lot of garbage. Yet, some of these terrible, terrible pieces of media still have enough charm attached to them that they get elevated to the illustrious heights of my trash. Bad, but delightfully so.
Oh dear, what am I going to do?
That's your problem.
I still wish that these games were better, but there's something about them that usually charms me, even as an adult. Probably because I just like it when there's a horsey on the screen. However, there is one game that even as a child I knew to be poopy caca. A game so charmless, so void of personality or plot or point to its existence, that I'm confident in saying that it is the worst horse game I have ever played. That game is Let's Ride Dreamer. I'm going to break from form a little bit today and air my grievances in a internet-friendly numbered list. I tried to make a cohesive narrative out of everything that happens in this game and why it's terrible, but as you will see, this game is allergic to any and all things cohesive and narratively satisfying. Instead, I will list my issues with this game, begrudgingly admit some things that it does well, and just generally complain about something that came out almost 20 years ago and has been bothering me for just as long because I'm just that kind of person. You lie awake at night thinking about the time you said, "Thanks, you too," to a server after they said, "Enjoy your meal," like a normie loser, whilst I'm out here thinking about the history and development of niche European gaming titles aimed at 7 to 11-year-olds. I'm just built different, I suppose. You wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me. Number 1. This game has nothing to do with the 2005 horse movie Dreamer. Despite its name, this game has absolutely nothing to do with the 2005 horse movie Dreamer. As we've talked about in other videos, horse games have always followed a confusing naming convention and will be known by vastly different titles in different countries depending on who's publishing them. Let's Ride is the North American horse game umbrella for the German... I'm just gonna go, how do I pronounce that? Lass uns reiten 2. How and why this game was able to get the Dreamer license for the US release is a mystery to me. If the other international releases weren't going to have this branding attached, then the game's plot couldn't be reliant on the film and the characters couldn't be the same for copyright reasons, I guess. But if the game isn't related to the movie in any way, why pay to license it in the first place? I mean, I get why it happened. It's to make the game sell more copies, because you will buy it thinking that it's already gonna be like that thing you already like. But on a logistical level, I don't understand why this random German horse game needed to cut a deal with DreamWorks when the profits for either company would be klein. No other horse game has been affiliated with a mainstream property like this before or after, so I don't know, it's just weird. I don't remember how this game came into my possession as a child, but I wholly believed it would be a faithful video game recreation of that one horse movie I thought was fine. The game opens with a poem from the film read by Dakota Fanning's character Cale Crane.
When you ran, the ground shook, the sky opened, and mere mortals parted. Part of the way to victory, where you'll meet me in the winner's circle, where I put a blanket of flowers on your back.
And then we get a wall of text explaining the basic plot of the movie and how we too can train, ride, and jump just like Cale in this version of Let's Ride, inspired by the DreamWorks movie. You are then greeted by this.
Hello, my name is Amy, and I'm 15 years old.
Okay. Number 2. Why are we here, and why does it look like that? We play as Amy, a child who has been granted sole custody of her friend's horse after she moves away. Amy is vocal that she doesn't really like horses.
Up until now, I was never a big horse fan.
Which is a bold choice for a horse game protagonist, but she's willing to give it a go to see if they can find some common ground. But keeping a horse is expensive, and Amy's dad lets us know that we can't really afford to take care of it. Cutting ahead a little bit, this game is profoundly anti-horse and takes every opportunity to mention how expensive it is to have a horse and how much responsibility it is to look after one.
I already told you. It costs a lot of money to own a horse.
Wow, it really is expensive to take care of a horse.
I don't think we can afford it. It's just too much money.
It reads like the kind of game that you give to your child to discourage them from wanting a horse by making it look as boring as possible. Thankfully, the stable owner, Mr. Stroud, is listening very attentively and says that Amy can do barn chores and run errands for him to offset the cost of keeping the horse at the stable. If things don't work out, Yeah, they can just sell it later, no biggie.
Later, if things do not work out as you expected, you can always look for a buyer for the horse. What do you think?
Oh, yes, Dad, please.
I was never a big horse fan.
All parties agree, and we are dumped unceremoniously into the beautiful, lifelike world of Let's Ride Dreamer and left to fend for ourselves. There are two other entities at the stable, Antonia and Eddie. Antonia is blonde, so she's a huge and Eddie probably has a manifesto. He has a really dweeby voice, and we get two separate quests that involve having to find his inhaler. Ich brauch mein Asthma-Inhalator!
But why didn't you ever tell me you were sick?
I suppose, if I'm honest, it's rather embarrassing.
Number 3. Action-packed gameplay. Every day we need to go to the barn to groom our horse, filling the bars on the left side of the screen, and ask Mr. Stroud if he has a quest for us. He will say no, so we have to leave the stable and come back again tomorrow. We will then return the next day, groom our horse, and be told that we need to be patient, and maybe he'll give us a task tomorrow, so we leave again. The next day, he probably won't have anything for us to do either, so we just have to groom the horse and leave. We will be given a task every 4 days. I'm just going to show you a clip of what the average day looks like in this game, just so you get an idea of how slow that feels.
A little mane decoration would certainly look good on your horse.
I think Ariana is better than Selena.
Are you crazy? Selena is an it girl. Her beauty brand, Rare Beauty, is way more successful. She was on Disney. She has more followers on Instagram.
What about streams?
I don't believe in the glorification of murder. I do believe in the empowerment of women.
She's like, no, I need to do it right now, actually. I really just need to lick my crotch right.
And be kind to one another, and be kind to yourself.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of your own actions.
So today we're going to talk about how to increase attention span and focus.
Wow, you could say they're selling like ghost cookies. And she said what?
Nobody's gonna remember your web content.
A lot of these games are very badly thought out, and if you've played enough of them, you can know that sometimes you'll get stuck just because it's not really that clear what you need to do next. It creates an unearned level of difficulty where you actually have to do something very simple, but the game is so poorly designed that you can be running around for hours trying to find a key or something because it's just not modeled very well, or it's somewhere you didn't know you could travel to. In this game, the fact that the characters seem so uninterested in talking to you, and it's not explained that something will happen eventually if you just keep playing for long enough, makes it feel like the game is broken, or there's just something that you should be doing, but you're too dumb to work it out. Number 4. Exhilarating minigames. There's an indoor dressage arena, and we can enter show jumping competitions that take place in random UK towns for some reason. We can free ride in a forest, or a wintry forest, and then both have competition modes that give you points based off of how many jumps you jump over. Sometimes you need to win an event to further the plot, but otherwise it's just for fun. Each time you win an event, you get a rosette, and then you unlock new crap the more rosettes you get. Number 5. The plot. Here is a list of everything that happens in the game. Please bear in mind that 4 days pass between each of these events. We have to find 15 carrots in the woods. Eddie asks us to find a stray cat in the woods. We mail a letter at the mailbox in the woods. We beat Antonia in a dressage contest. Our dad congratulates us, but he says he's having a hard time at work lately, and we probably can't keep the horse long term.
Oh well, you don't always get what you want.
We have to find a letter from our friend that Antonia hid in the woods. Eddie asks us why Antonia is so mean to Amy all the time, And she's like, I don't know, maybe she's like jealous. I don't know.
Maybe she's jealous for some reason.
Eddie loses his inhaler whilst riding in the woods, so we go and find it for him. Antonia challenges us to a jumping contest.
I doubt very much that you could make a better score than me. You got more points than I did. It's just beginner's luck.
Eddie loses 5 tins of cat food whilst riding in the wintry woods, and we have to go and find them. Eddie goes out for a ride in the wintry woods without his inhaler, and Antonia asks us to bring it to him. When we find him and bring him home, he tells us that Antonia's parents divorced, and that's why she's such a huge... Mr. Strauss says that an old lady is looking for the cat that we found, but that it's also gone missing again. We find the cat in the wintry woods and bring it back to the stable.
Today's your lucky day.
Antonia apologizes for being mean in kind of a gay way.
And I'm also sorry that I wasn't very friendly to you. I can actually be quite nice.
Mr. Strauss tells us to beat Eddie at cross country. When we get back to the stable, our dad tells us that we have to sell the horse, and Amy is just too stunned to speak.
I was never a big horse fan.
Conveniently, it's now time for the big show jumping tournament that no one has mentioned before this point. Not only do we win the prize money, but the old lady whose cat we kept hostage for several weeks wants to give us a reward for taking such good care of the cat and definitely not losing it twice. Our dad tells us that he's doing better at work now, so we can probably keep the horse. The end. Now everyone gets raptured, and it's just Amy and Sarah's horse until the end of time, forced to live in a world of perpetual daylight, repeating menial tasks that do not impact the world around them. 2 beings forced together out of circumstance, who are now doomed to live out all eternity together, symbiotically. Enemies to lovers! I never actually finished this game when I was a kid, which is astounding when you think about how many of these miserable games I've played. I think I got to the part where you need to mail the letter, and I had this weird, out-of-body experience where I realized that I could be doing literally anything else on earth right now, so I went to go jump over broom handles in my back garden instead. I was interested in finding out if anything actually happened in this game, and thought that maybe there would be something entertaining at the end of this flat, primary-coloured nightmare. Even if it wasn't the kind of entertainment the developers were intending.
Don't be so beastly.
Perhaps Amy wouldn't get to keep the horse, and it would have all been for naught. Maybe Antonia's parents would get back together, and she'd stop being such a huge... Maybe Eddie would bring a gun to the stable. But no, you win the big competition and save the day. How novel. Number 6. Stuff that's a bit good. I think the art style is very ugly and off-putting, but ironically, this is probably the most competently made horse game of the 2000s. The characters' movements are smooth and the animations loop correctly. Everybody blinks! You get to make a horse at the beginning of the game, and you're actually able to choose between 2 different body types, regular and plus size. The horse has some nice animations in the stable, where it shuffles around and looks at you expectantly. I like that you can see the horse inside the barn when you're outside, and it actually moves around, so it's not just a flat 2D rendering. I actually only had the game wig out once, and I was able to gallop across the plains of our very reality, space and time unfolding in front of me. I thought perhaps this could be an escape from the repetition of day-to-day life. Maybe there was a more exciting adventure over the horizon, and I just had to push past my discomfort of being in a new and daunting environment, and just carpe my diem. But it was all too much. So I came back to reality, whoop, there goes gravity, and came back to what I knew best, what was safe, brushing horses. Number 7. The course editor. The one part of this game that I did revisit, after deciding that my dwindling youth was more important than completing a video game, which at every instance would tell me to go away and do something else, was the course editor. This allows you to create your own show jumping course without any limitations, and would inevitably lead to me trying to create a show jumping gauntlet of death. Doing this made me really miss Riding Club Championships and all the cool show jumping courses people used to make there. Shout out to all my Swedish boyfriends that I made on the Riding Club Championships world chat. Miss you, Sven. I actually am 14F California, despite what the naysayers are naying and saying. Number 8. Other things of note that I want to mention as a means to free my brain from this pointless information. Our horse is the only horse in the entire game When you save Eddie's asthmatic tuchus from the ravages of natural selection, he's just standing there alone on the trail, nary a hoofed beast to be seen. The entire barn is made for a single horse, a horse that was left behind by an owner who entrusted its care to an individual who proudly admits to not being a fan. And I just think that's beautiful. I usually like to peruse behindthevoiceactor.com just to find the poor unfortunate souls that get affiliated with these terrible horse games, but this game has virtually no digital footprint whatsoever, so I wasn't able to find who these dulcet tones belong to.
There you are, kitty. I'll ride quickly back to the farm and let the others know.
The in-game credits only show the developers and the designers, and not whoever was responsible for these stunning vocal performances.
That was a great performance. Congratulations on your victory.
Amy sounds like she remembers when the Lindbergh baby got snatched.
Dad, it would be so cool if I could keep Sarah's horse.
The developer's website says that it took 6 months to make this game. Apparently it had LAN and online multiplayer at one point too, so that 6 months was well spent. It only took me about 3 minutes to install this game, and it doesn't have any DRM on it or whatever, so at least the developers understood that art shouldn't be gatekept. In the cross-country game, you get points based off of how many jumps you jump over, but they don't track what you jump over, so you can just jump over the same thing for 5 minutes straight and get 18,000 points. Since horse games have more filler than every celebrity you think has aged well due to being unproblematic, you'll usually get a library or a clubhouse filled with educational horse texts, filled with fun facts the developers have hastily Googled about horses. In this game, we have a club room with various books about horse stuff. They must have been really scraping the bottom of the barrel, because one section is titled Jobs with Horses. I figured that it would be like jockey, farrier, vet, and then a brief description of what these people do. And those jobs are there. But the first one they list is the person who disposes of horse corpses.
I was never a big horse fan.
Number 9. In conclusion, of all the strange things that got made during the 2000s horse game bubble, Let's Ride Dreamer is definitely one of the strangest. But part of me kind of feels bad that it never really resonated with its audience. To be big-brained for a sec, I think the real problem is that it was released too late and was now competing with the Alexander Lederman series, which is also bad, but they'd steered the genre away from depression simulators and more towards action-adventure puzzlers. So a barn chores game would have felt too basic for the horse girls of yore in 2006, but if it had been released in 2003, when their tastes were a bit simpler, maybe it would have hit different. But I don't want to be too kind. This game is still very bad, and I don't think anyone should play it. Or maybe you should play it, just so that you can agree with my opinion, and I can feel a slither of self-worth for once. If you played this game as a child and you enjoyed it, you were wrong and you have bad taste. Good night. God bless. Well jumped.
Welcome to the jumping turn. Well jumped. 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 Well jumped.
Maybe she's jealous for some reason.